I have a very vivid picture of my niece when she was staying with me one summer. Her sitting on the steps, coming from upstairs, and we were headed to the park. She let out a big sigh and put her head on her hands, and I asked her what was wrong. She said, "Let's go make friends again." It was kind of sad, actually. She'd been moving around a lot, and it was kind of her way of saying she was done trying to make new friends because making friends is hard at any age. There was a point in time where she liked it, where she was excited about it. And after moving a lot, it just got to be hard. It made me remember those first tentative attempts to make friends when I was younger. And even as an adult, it's kind of interesting. Making friends happens much easier, but it's something you have to stop and make time for and put effort into. We actually have a conversation in depth on that for an episode later in this season. But today we're doing something a little different. I'll get into that in just a minute. Welcome to The Grit Show, Growth on Purpose. I'm glad you found us. I'm your host, Shauna Rodriguez, and I'm honored to be leading you on today's journey as part of this community, growing together as seekers and thrivers. If it's your first time, I'm glad you're here. And if you're familiar with us, we would love if you take a moment and leave a review. I love to hear what you have to say. It is so valuable to learn your perspective and what you enjoy about the show so we know what to focus on going forward. Thank you for being part of this community. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We essentially get to have a guest episode where one of the other podcasts in my network, The Fire Inside Her with Diane Schroeder, will have their episode broadcast on the Grit Show feed. It's a wonderful way for you to discover a new podcast that I really think you'll enjoy. It's also a great way to spark some fabulous conversations. When I had this opportunity, I took my time to think about the different episodes on Diane's podcast and which one I thought you all would connect with the most and enjoy the most. It really was a hard choice. She has a lot of valuable guests and a lot of great information that she gives out on her podcast every week that I think everyone can gain from. This episode that I chose is entitled Connection, Community, and Collaboration. And her guest is someone who lives in Oregon, which, if you didn't know, I also live in Oregon. So there is definitely a connection there. Diane starts with a very vulnerable story about herself growing up and trying to make friends and connection, and realizing as an adult she was missing female friendships because sometimes as we get older, we get a little more isolated. I think after the pandemic, a lot of us are feeling a little more isolated. And so thinking about trying to make those connections again, her episode goes into one of those adult leadership friendship connections she made that really has made a positive impact on her in many ways. I love hearing about their relationship, and I love hearing the story of how they connected and the friendship that blossomed out of that. Beyond that, they also have a really good conversation about collaboration and community and the importance of community. Both of those are themes in Diane's podcast, as she talks a lot about there being more than enough room at the table and inviting people to the table and knowing who is your community and the importance of community. It's a very valuable conversation. I also love that Trish Connolly is from Bend, Oregon. I'm from Oregon. I live in Portland currently, grew up in a very small town in Southern Oregon. It's grown a lot since I first lived there. And Bend is a place you'll be hearing a lot more about from me in the coming months. So it's a fun connection. These are two strong women who both have very impressive leadership positions, and hearing them talk about the role of women in leadership is something I found very inspirational. Who they are and all they've given to the work they've done really comes through in their conversation and is both inspirational and valuable in learning how they've navigated things and gained from things and what they've taken from it. It's something I think you'll enjoy. Being able to do exciting things like share each other's podcasts is part of being in the Authentic Connections Network. This is the podcast network that I founded after launching The Grit Show when I realized the abysmal fact that only 27% of podcasts are hosted by women, a fact that needs to change. I'm very excited about all the little ways and little things that are being done to take the tech and stress out of podcasting, give it the power of a network, and make it easy to fit into the lives of women so that more women are out here podcasting, amplifying their voices, and getting their messages out to the world. I have a cohort launching in mid-June as part of a summer podcast incubator so that we'll have a fresh batch of podcasts for you to be enjoying in the fall. If you know of someone who needs to have a podcast, be sure to have them get in touch with me so they can be part of this exciting experience, this launching for a small group of select individuals who will have the opportunity to be part of the founding circle of the Authentic Connections Network. So this introduction is actually a separate little episode, but what should happen is whatever platform you're using should automatically just play into the next episode, and it should go right into Diane and the Fire Insider podcast because that episode is right here on the Grit Show feed. If it doesn't, just go into your podcast player and just play the next episode. It will have a very similar design as the one that we did for this episode so that you'll be able to follow along pretty easily and know you were in the right place. I hope you enjoy connection, collaboration, and community from the Fire Insider podcast. I look forward to hearing what you think of it. And because it is me, and because it is the Grit Show, I've always got to say, you are the only one of you that this world has got. And that really means something. I'll be here again next week. I hope you are too.